What inappropriate behavior is widely accepted if you're attractive but despised if you aren't? Story 1. Getting practically bare at a music festival. Also, flirting in situations where it's not appropriate is risky, especially if you're not attractive. Creepy is being flirtatious but not attractive. Then there's the whole stalking and clingy behavior. It'd be a horror movie if Ryan Gosling wasn't good looking in The Notebook. Despite his attractiveness, that movie is pretty weird. The story's messed up, and I can't understand why people find it romantic. Similar vibes to Twilight. Seriously, saying you enjoy sneaking into someone's house to watch them sleep is not cute. Trying to isolate them from their friends? Major creepy vibes. Even Pattison admitted it's super creepy. Blood drinking grandpa stalks high school for loner freshmen. Only works if the grandpa's attractive. That whole go out or I'll harm myself thing? It's mind-blowing how my teenage female classmates swooned over that movie. Most romantic comedies logically should end with a restraining order. Think about it. Consider every Adam Sandler flick. It's like loud yelling, annoying faces, fart noises, and then regretful drinking. Then, of course, there's Rob Schneider. But imagine swapping Ryan Gosling in The Notebook with Danny DeVito and everything remains the same. It'd be absolutely hilarious. Story 2. Doing outrageous things to grab attention or being a rebellious designer. As a 32-year-old man, I've got quite a bit to share on this because I realized I got away with a ton of mischievous antics back in high school, just because I was considered good looking. Reflecting on what I managed to pull off back then is quite astonishing. I started donning a black leather trench coat in 9th grade and wore it every single day for years. It wasn't the cheap kind, it was a pricey, classy piece. Surprisingly, I got away with many cringeworthy things just because I was seen as cute. This was only 3 years post-Columbine, mind you. Surprisingly, it sparked a small trend. By 10th grade, 5 or 6 others were sporting different variations, pleather, cotton, etc. I distinctly recall even a jock trying on one for a while, which was quite entertaining. But by senior year, they were banned. All of this earned me a nickname, the insert my first name shortened, so for instance, if your name is Steven, it would have been something like The Steve. At first, I wasn't aiming to come off as creepy, I just wanted to be different. Anxiety froze me, rendering me almost like a robot overloaded with sensory input. Over time, I found how sensitive everyone was somewhat amusing, so I shut it all out. Most perceive this as unwavering courage, hence the imitation, but truthfully, it was fueled by spite and intentional rudeness. It took me years, especially during my time in the army, to learn how to interact with people in a normal way, the hard way. In 7th grade, I lost most of my friends due to my profound awkwardness. I was known as the quiet one, only speaking up to correct people. One might assume that being quiet and dressing strangely would be off-putting, but nope. Thankfully, among the goths and rockers, there was a tribe of oddballs, including attractive girls, forcing my avant-garde choices. My peculiarity became an odd kind of allure. By sophomore year, I had the whole package. Guy liner, colored fishnets, eyeshadow, Tinkerbell t-shirts, pants, wild hair, and the piece de resistance, my trench coat. Rain or shine, it was my signature outfit, like the emblem of my clique. I had a bit of an issue with a few girls mildly stalking me, but my fear kept me from engaging, so I probably dodged a few problematic situations, pun intended. Matrix style. By senior year, there were at least 4 or 5 other trench coat enthusiasts, leading to their eventual ban. During high school, I had an internet girlfriend from Canada who shared my interests in edgy music and concerts. I know it sounds like one of those made-up stories. You wouldn't know her, she goes to another school in another country. Surprisingly, people didn't doubt it much, partly because it was true, and also, well, why would the good-looking guy fabricate such a tale? We met in a 1417 MSN Messenger chat room before they got overrun by bots. Meeting people my age was common, and if we clicked, we'd arrange to meet at the mall. Back then, it felt like the safest spot for a teen to meet someone from the internet, and I knew the bus routes well. My mom trusted me enough to go because she knew I wasn't foolish. And let's face it, no one was snatching up the weird kid. Plus, everyone had webcams, making it easy to verify candidates beforehand. During summer and winters, my girlfriend and I visited each other, either by saving money or convincing our parents for a plane ticket. It always worked out somehow. As a pastime, we'd stroll around the city, making people uncomfortable with our unique appearances. Despite my errors and denying myself a typical high school experience filled with mischief, good grades, and hanging out with a cool crowd, I now comprehend why some resort to cringeworthy actions out of spite, usually stemming from deep pain and lack of knowing where to begin with responsibility. This realization hit harder when we faced car bombs at our positions in Iraq. Pain, spite, protest back in 2008? I thought, I get it. Profound desperation. I admit I wasn't exactly an upstanding individual and managed to resemble the stereotypical creepy school kid. Surprisingly, my attractiveness garnered support from the school, sparking a trend. It was through this experience that I began to grasp the concepts of narcissism and violent extremism better. Man, this guy sure was edgy. His rebellious streak escalated quickly, like the DEFCON level during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Story 3. I've observed that good-looking men tend to get away with being super subpar leaders more easily, and I've noticed this trend in my workplace. Statistics show that the average CEO is notably taller and tends to have better hair than the average person. It's a common occurrence for individuals to attain leadership positions due to genetic traits. On another note, I once came across an interesting theory suggesting that across generations, intelligent individuals may become more good looking because of their likelihood to succeed and find partners who meet society's beauty standards. Their children inheriting the best of both worlds perpetuates this cycle. Repeat this pattern over 1,000 generations, and you end up with a cohort of brilliant, attractive individuals at the helm of everything. It's almost comical, like the Dilbert cartoon. In my younger days, I found Dilbert amusing, thinking it was just a funny comic strip. Now I've realized it's a rather terrifying documentary. As a kid, I didn't grasp it at all. But as I grew up, I landed an office job, ironically as an engineer. Now it's a spot-on depiction of reality. It's similar to watching Office Space after diving into an office job or waiting post-working at a restaurant. But then there's the case of Trump. He's got that orange potato look going, yet somehow he manages to get away with it. Story 4. There's something about smiling at the opposite gender, especially in the office. People appreciate it more when an attractive person does it, yet it can make others feel uneasy when it comes from someone they don't consider attractive. I find myself smiling automatically when I make eye contact. I hope that means I'm perceived as attractive. Then there's the issue of flirting. If you don't fit the stereotypical beauty standards, flirting can be misunderstood as insulting or creepy, rather than the compliment it's intended to be. It's as if it's seen as a manifestation of the flirter's desperation rather than an honest appreciation or simple kindness toward the recipient. Interestingly, it seems like the younger generation might have a different perspective on this. Here's a little anecdote. I was at the DMV, sitting a couple of seats away from a lady in her 60s when a man of the same age came over and said, "Well, if I'm going to have to wait, I might as well wait with someone good looking." She giggled and thanked him, and they started a conversation about their families. It was endearing, but I immediately thought, oh, you can't say things like that anymore. However, someone mentioned something to me. They said that if you don't fit the traditional standards and try to flirt with someone else who does, it's seen as creepy. The lesson here is about sticking to your level. It's a sad lesson. So here's a good rule of thumb. Let go of the idea of levels and feel free to talk to whoever you want. Ranking people can have a significant impact on your self-esteem and confidence, for better or worse. Story 5. There's a stark difference in how society perceives certain traits based on appearances. If someone attractive acts foolish, it's often seen as charming. But if someone deemed unattractive displays the same behavior, they're labeled as genetically inferior. Also, there's this unwritten rule that you should be able to pass on desirable traits. If you're considered unattractive and not particularly intelligent, it's almost as if you're disqualified. Then there's the idea of being the quiet person. If you're attractive, it's often interpreted as being independent and cool. But if you're not attractive, you might be seen as strange, perhaps even mistakenly labeled as someone potentially dangerous. I've also noticed a connection to race in this perception. As a black person who's introverted, I've faced being called standoffish and intimidating my whole life. In contrast, I've encountered many white or East Asian individuals with similar personalities described as shy, mysterious, or aloof. Physical appearance plays a significant role in how people judge others. It's often assumed you fit in if you're larger, but if you're smaller, you're suddenly labeled as the weird one. Real talk, bro. People shouldn't be so quick to judge based on looks alone. If you feel what this person just said, then you're probably going to agree with the guy on Story 8. He knows what it's like to feel invisible. Story 6. There's a double standard when it comes to being awkward. It's more acceptable if you're considered attractive. Then there's the issue of attire at the gym, being shirtless or wearing just a sports bra. It's one of those scenarios where societal acceptance seems to fluctuate based on physical appearance. The same goes for being nerdy. If you're rated as a 10 and enjoy playing Dungeons and Dragons, you're seen as quirky and fun. However, if you're rated lower on the attractiveness scale and play D&D, suddenly you're labeled as a basement-dwelling creep. Take the example of someone like Chris Evans with an Xbox. It's seen as a way to relax. But if someone less popular like Gilbert Gottfried has a Steam account, suddenly they're labeled as a no-life loser. Similarly, if you're in shape and enjoy reading comics, you're admired for your broad interests and hobbies. Yet if you have a fondness for cheeseburgers and read comics, you're essentially stereotyped as Neanderthal, and so on. Someone once explained the expectancy violation theory to me. It's quite intriguing when applied to attraction. In essence, if individuals have a negative relationship or perception, any departure from societal norms tends to worsen their negative stance. However, in a positive relationship or perception, deviating from norms often rewards or strengthens the positive connection. Looking at it through the lens of attraction, it's intriguing to see how deviations from norms can significantly impact perceptions based on the existing relationship dynamics or perception between individuals. Story 7. Door-to-door sales rely a lot on looks. Being attractive can boost sales, which is why med reps usually fit that bill. When I worked in pharmacies, it was pretty clear. Any woman resembling a model working with a briefcase? Yep, a med rep. It's a bit of a sexist game in that industry. Then there's the issue of invading personal space and inappropriate touching. You'd think it's a no-go, but sometimes status seems to give a pass. Take Joe Biden. He brushes off criticism like it's nothing. Saw him on The View saying he shouldn't have to apologize for his behavior. It's like he believes he's never done anything wrong. Yeah, good looks have their perks, but they don't give you a pass to act like a creep. Story 8. Have you ever noticed how talking about yourself can be perceived differently based on your looks? When an attractive person does it, everyone's interested. But the moment someone less attractive starts, suddenly it's no one cares. In one of my past jobs, I shared an office with a boss and a coworker who were both quite self-centered. At lunchtime, my boss would dominate conversations, talking endlessly about herself. Strangely enough, the easiest way to stop her chatter was to start talking about yourself. She'd promptly divert her attention and pretend to work. Story 9. Everything a less attractive person does gets judged harsher than when an attractive person does the same thing. It's unfair and shouldn't even be a thing. But you know what? It's not anyone's fault. It's just how our brains operate. Cognitive bias at work. Look up the halo effect. It's a prime example. Then there's the matter of inappropriate intimacy-related humor. It's somehow more acceptable if it comes from an attractive person. Let's talk about being a guy and going shirtless outside in summer. I did this once in a marching band just to mess with people. I was less than 100 pounds. You could practically see my heartbeat in every single rib. It might have made some uncomfortable, but there was this one guy who found it hilarious and kept calling me sexy the whole time. Regrets? Absolutely none. Story 10. It's crazy how differently society perceives eating massive amounts of food based on someone's body size. When a skinny girl indulges in a plate of burgers, fries, and a milkshake, she's often admired and lusted after. However, if a heavier girl does the same, she's quickly labeled as disgusting and unhealthy. From an American perspective, it's mind-boggling how the majority of us are overweight or obese, yet we hold such disdain over overweight individuals. The comments on mukbangs, particularly comparing thin, attractive people to heavier or less conventionally attractive individuals, are quite shocking. Doing multiple mukbangs a week might not be healthy for anyone, regardless of their size or appearance. Body shaming is real, bro. If you're a cute foodie, people see you as Kirby. But if you're a bit thicker, you're suddenly a baddie ready to consume the universe. Can you relate to this? Drop your stories in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel today. Story 11. Being a bit of a dirtbag or wearing revealing attire might get different reactions based on how attractive you are. Take being an exotic dancer, for instance. It's interesting how society perceives dorkiness or awkwardness as cute in attractive people, but subjects those who don't fit conventional standards to ridicule. I've noticed this stark difference when it comes to discussing personal interests. When I go on a nerdy tangent about the Joker's narcissism, it's often seen as cute or passionate about a topic. Someone even called it hot. However, when my friend, who has acne, pitting, and distinctive English features, starts talking about his latest coding project, I notice people tend to tune out much quicker, or they even try to get him to stop. Story 12. Existing in public, reproducing, holding a high paying job, finding general happiness, breathing, simply being. This explains why, when Thanos snapped his fingers, the 50% that vanished was composed entirely of what some might consider ugly people. Story 13. Wearing super short shorts at work created different reactions. My attractive coworker got compliments, while my overweight coworker was told to leave and change. Additionally, there's the issue of physical contact, from innocently trying to get someone's attention to outright unwanted touching. As a larger, less attractive person, I've noticed a stark double standard. If an attractive girl grabs a guy, it's often seen as acceptable. But if an unattractive girl does the same, it's a violation. A similar pattern emerges for attractive and unattractive guys. If a hot guy gets handsy, it's often overlooked, maybe a minor reprimand. But if an unattractive guy does the same, it could lead to being kicked out, banned, or involving the police. Story 14. Trying to talk your way out of a speeding ticket is one thing, but honestly, it's disturbing how attractive and famous individuals often evade major consequences for crimes just because of their looks and fame. This, frankly, is unacceptable. Additionally, there's the issue of purposeful ignorance or starting to avoid accountability. Then there's the matter of being barefoot at work in an office setting. It's noticeable how certain individuals, especially the hot chicks, can get away with it, while others, particularly overweight individuals, cannot. However, flirting seems to work differently. I've flirted in situations where it was inappropriate, yet faced no backlash. Story 15. It's noticeable that more attractive individuals often get away with awkward behavior. Some manage to pout or complain, and it's tolerated if they're considered attractive. Additionally, it might be skewed by observation, but it appears that good looking people often escape consequences for being complete jerks. A bit like the Mean Girls effect. The Reginas of the world get a pass for being unpleasant, while those considered less attractive are simply seen as jerks. Furthermore, saying things like, "I did nothing wrong, but it's okay because I'm cute," is only acceptable if you're considered attractive. Doing the same thing to someone of the same or opposite gender, especially if there's a significant age gap, is perceived as very bad. Story 16. Acting obliviously loud and being really hammered at a party. Additionally, there's a discrepancy between flashing for fun and flashing because of breastfeeding. After giving birth, some consider it their least attractive moment. Frequent selfies anytime, anywhere. Taking an extended time to order food or being particular about what you eat. Indulging in a lot of food. Comments vary based on appearance. "Wow, that slim girl devoured 30 hot wings," versus, "Wow, that heavier girl ate 30 hot wings." Having specific preferences in dating or what one finds attractive. And the act of males removing their shirts. Dude, it's like when pretty people act crazy, they're just being quirky. But if ordinary people do the same thing, people cringe. Story 17. Many attractive individuals often find it hard to believe that such things happen to people considered ugly. When I've tried explaining that I've been treated differently solely because of my appearance, I've even been labeled as an incel. Despite being a teenage girl, they dismissed my experiences, attributing them to my being quiet or rude. In reality, I consider myself overly sensitive. Those who know me personally have praised my chill and kind nature. However, there's an unfortunate tendency for people to assume that individuals deemed ugly are unintelligent, mean, or even creepy before they even meet them. Story 18. Public displays of affection create different reactions based on the couple's attractiveness. If the couple is unattractive, it often draws negative remarks and disapproving looks. On the other hand, if the couple is considered attractive, their PDA is celebrated on platforms like Instagram, generating portraits, smiles, and comments like, "Oh, that's amazing." These photos may even be sold as art and featured in various media outlets such as magazines, newspapers, online news syndicates, and TV. Similarly, being in photos, if you're attractive, you enhance the picture. If you're not, you're seen as a photobomb. When it comes to hurling insults, the impact varies based on attractiveness. Insults from an attractive person might be perceived as effective, while those from an unattractive person might prompt a harsher response. Lastly, there's the matter of skinny dipping. Story 19. Practically everything. From coquetry to asserting yourself, beautiful people tend to receive exceptional accommodation, receptiveness, and compliance from others. On the contrary, negative assumptions are swiftly made about less fortunate looking individuals, leading to their flirtatious behavior being viewed as predatory, repulsive, and debased. Moreover, bothering women, when attractive, it's often perceived as flirting. When unattractive, it's seen as inappropriate. Not trying to make a statement, just pointing it out. Also, twerking and acting clueless. Acceptable if it's someone considered super hot. Inconsequential if it's someone deemed less attractive. Also, being excessively flirtatious with numerous people and sporting a nose ring. Story 20. Addressing others with names like "Hey cutie" or "Hey love." Sadly, it's a reality. Additionally, requesting freebies or extras. Across various services or products, attractive people often receive additional perks or favors. Employees tend to go the extra mile for them. On the contrary, if you're considered unattractive, people generally don't extend the same effort to provide something extra. Also, being awkward. While it's not inherently inappropriate, it often receives varying treatment. If you're attractive, you're perceived as cute and sweet, and might even get awes. Maybe you're even labeled as mysterious. However, if you're not as attractive, you might be seen as that weird guy. Bro, it's just like in anime. The pretty boys are always the popular ones, while the weirdos are just there for comic relief. Story 21. When an attractive but rude person asks you out, it's seen as cute. However, if an ugly but genuinely nice person asks you out, it's labeled as creepy. It's a messed up reality. Additionally, engaging in inappropriate behavior such as having fun with yourself on a park bench, or randomly sneaking up on female friends and kissing them on the cheek, seen as charming if you're attractive, but considered creepy if you're not. And merely being near a child can lead to unfair assumptions. People might assume the worst if you're unattractive and seen with a child outside, often jumping to conclusions. Story 22. Displaying arrogance. Moreover, staring or smiling at strangers. When attractive, it's often taken as a compliment, as if you're checking them out. However, if you're considered unattractive, it's perceived as extremely creepy. Also, requesting a woman's phone number on the street and engaging in overly touchy intimate flirting. Lastly, lacking a basic understanding of social interactions. When you're considered attractive, there's a tendency for people to validate your opinions, making you feel correct about anything you say. Story 23. Being perceived as trashy. It includes actions like casually asserting dominance by giving an uncomfortable slap on the rear, implying, "I'm popular, so any contact from me makes you mine." Also, the act of playfully taking things from people can be perceived differently based on appearance. If a pretty girl takes your hat and wears it, it's often seen as charming or attractive. However, if an average-looking girl does the same, it might be met with a different reaction, marked as possessive or rude. Personally, I wouldn't wear someone else's hat due to concerns about hygiene, and I've observed this behavior in other women, finding it bizarre yet somehow more acceptable if they were considered more attractive. Nonetheless, I prefer avoiding contact with others' sweat or potentially sharing lice. Story 24. From K-dramas, I've learned that following someone home when you're considered attractive is seen as protective, while doing the same when you're not is labeled as stalking. Moreover, getting physical or flirting can differ based on attractiveness. Personally, being less attractive, I feel hesitant to engage in conversation with girls as physical contact from someone deemed less attractive can gross them out more than if it were from someone good looking. Additionally, it's ironic how a fit man kissing or hugging his heavier wife suggestively can draw nasty looks from other women. It's unsettling to witness how people unquestioningly follow everything someone extremely attractive does, regardless of its appropriateness. It sickens me to think about, especially that creepy grin they always seem to get away with. It's all about the aesthetic, dude. Patrick Bateman's Sigma smirk wouldn't be trending on TikTok if he looked like Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you're still hanging in there, then you're definitely not going to want to miss what are some downsides of being too hot. Story 1 hit me right in the feels. See you there.